Welcome.
I'm Cameron Scott, one of the story architects of Star Wars The High Republic.
This is Dominic Pace, who plays Gekko the Bounty Hunter from The Mandalorian.
Hi, I'm Claudia Gray. I write Star Wars books.
And you're listening.
And you are listening
to Star Wars Comics in Canon. The Force is strong with this one.
Hello there and welcome to Star Wars Comics in Canon, your guide to the wider Star Wars canon through the comic book lens. And to take you on this journey, I'm your host, Mike Burton. And so brings episode 97. So then, my friends, welcome once again to Star Wars Comics in Canon. This week I'm tackling what I'm deeming as the Crimson Reign Prelude, but may also be construed as the War of the Bounty Hunters Epilogue. So a little while ago, sort of the tail end of 2021, I tackled the War of the Bounty Hunters crossover event. That was in episodes 60, 64, 68, 72, 77 and 82 of Star Wars Comics in Canon. You can find there's a playlist called War of the Bounty Hunters on my YouTube channel, so it's got all the episodes in there. But in short, you've got 4 ongoing series set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Star Wars 2020, Darth Vader 2020, Doctor Aphra 2020 and Bounty Hunters. Now the 4 of them have got their own various storylines and characters and etc, but they occasionally cross over. Now the War of the Bounty Hunters, you had those issues going on and crossing over with each other, as well as having some War of the Bounty Hunters mini-series issues. So there were 5 of those main ones and then an alpha that was kind of like a prelude. And then you also had companion comics, which were about various other bounty hunters in the galaxy, like IG-88. You also had one about Jabba. You got one on Boushh, those sorts of things. Now, Crimson Reign is then the sequel to that. So Charles Soule, who's kind of put this together, he has said that War of the Bounty Hunters is the first, then Crimson Reign, and then there will be a third. And it's all kind of centering around Kira. And Kira is the character from Solo. She's the love interest played by Emilia Clarke. At the end of Solo, she becomes the leader of Crimson Dawn. And this is set around 10 to 15 years later, from what I can vaguely recall. It's around between 3 and 4 ABY after the Battle of Yavin. And so Solo was taking place about halfway between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So yeah, thereabouts. But for the next batch of Crimson Reign comics, there will be the mini-series, so there'll be 5 issues of Crimson Reign and then all the crossovers, but there don't appear to be companion comics with individual characters, which is completely fine with me. But what I noticed is I was going to embark on this Crimson Reign crossover event for the next few, but I noticed there are 4 issues of Bounty Hunter, Star Wars, Vader and Aphra, which didn't, strictly speaking, fall within War of the Bounty Hunters or Crimson Reign. Normally they've got the banners at the top of the comic itself, but these ones don't. And when you open them and it says what the issue is called, it doesn't say Crimson Reign 1 or anything like that. It just has the name of a comic, which is its own individual thing. So this week I'm tackling the 4 comics: Bounty Hunters 18, Star Wars 19, Darth Vader 18, Doctor Aphra 16, and these are sort of the in-between issues between War of the Bounty Hunters and Crimson Reign. And then in a few weeks' time, I will then tackle Crimson Reign 1 and the related issues, and then we'll go from there. I imagine by the time I finish Crimson Reign, then the next batch of crossovers will be announced, so I'll be able to tackle those as well. But that's the kind of background, so let's get into some information about the comics themselves before I get into the story. If you haven't joined us before, I'll go through each of these comics, give you general plot details, and then we'll also mention any references, Easter eggs, or trivia that I noticed that I think is interesting, such as, characters that have appeared before, or species, or planets, or other such like, so you get a better understanding of the Star Wars canon. Occasionally I'll see things from Legends, and I'll mention where they came from in Legends as well, but this is generally focusing on the canon. So I already said this is set 3 to 4 years after the Battle of Yavin, which is between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. It's after War of the Bounty Hunters. So we start with Bounty Hunters 18. It was released December 1st, 2021. The trade paperback collection is due to be released August 2022, and from what I can see online, it seems to be issues 18 to 22 of Bounty Hunters. The writer of this comic is Ethan Sachs, the artist is Ramon Bachs, and the colour artist is Bryan Valenza. Now, if you haven't read any of the Bounty Hunters comics and you want to start from square one, you can do so, obviously, with your own volition. You can do on Marvel Unlimited, anything like that. But if you want to do it from my podcast and you want to listen to me go through all of the Bounty Hunters comics, then start with episode 75, then do episode 80, and that'll be the first 2 volumes of the Bounty Hunters comics. Then they go into the War of the Bounty Hunters comics, and I'll say it one more time. Those were episodes 60, 64, 68, 72, 77, and 82. I'll put a note in the description so yourselves can follow follow that, but also make sure you check it out on YouTube. So that's a general idea of where we are at with Bounty Hunters and how you can listen to all the other episodes. So let's get into the comic itself, starting with The Crawl. Valance, after being left for dead by Boba Fett, finds himself reconstructed and in the care of Sith Lord Darth Vader. Meanwhile, the rest of the bounty hunters mourn the loss of Valance as they believe him to be dead. So it starts with a flashback showing young Valance. He's on the planet Chorin, and there's a parade celebrating the Empire's success in a recent battle. Valance is excited to meet a gentleman named Captain Sokoli, nicknamed the Spine Dragon, who is nice to Valance and talks about fighting for the Empire and being a hero and how important it is. It then cuts to modern day, and it shows that Valance is aboard Vader's Star Destroyer, the Executor. Now, I mentioned it in The Crawl, but in short, Boba Fett and Valance plan to go on the Executor to take back Han Solo's carbonated corpse and then deliver it to Jabba. Well, Boba wanted to deliver it to Jabba, Valance wanted to save Han Solo, all that's detailed in prior issues, but in doing so, Boba Fett then betrayed Valance. I think he hurt him with a thermal detonator, and then Valance was dying, and so he's now woken up with Vader's medical droids and things taking care of him. But Valance doesn't want to fight for the Empire, and Vader confirms that he's restored Valance. And Valance looks around and then notices something peculiar in a jar. He goes up to it and sees it's his own heart. He apparently died and Vader replaced it, but with something that wasn't a normal organic heart, but was mechanical. Valance is completely traumatized by this, thinking that the heart was one of the main things that kept him still being somewhat human. He feels like he's barely human, and Vader comments saying that he has been upgraded. Valance notes this and then fires with his hand blasters straight at Vader numerous times. Vader manages to deflect all of these completely fine and then slices Valance in half with his lightsaber and tells his medical droid to rebuild him. Then it cuts to the rest of the bounty hunters who are on Burnin Konn. They are specifically in a place called the Carbon Score Cantina. Now, Carbon Score Cantina, you see that in Bounty Hunters 1, but also in the game Star Wars Uprising. Now, Burnin Konn was originally from a Legends role-playing game, and its first canon appearance was in Star Wars Uprising, plus it's been in Mandalorian Series 5, plus it was mentioned in Mandalorian Chapter 15, which is when Migs Mayfield mentions its destruction in Operation Cinder, and Operation Cinder is the contingency that Palpatine rolled out when he, air quotes, died at the end of Return of the Jedi, and it was one of the central plot points of the game Battlefront 2. You've got these droids going around that are telling Imperials to do certain things, but in short, the Emperor wanted the Empire to kind of destroy itself and to destroy any worlds that remained loyal to the Empire or to the rebellion. It was mainly about hurting the Empire, kind of trying to destroy and tear it down again, because Palpatine viewed it as like a failure. And then obviously Rise of Skywalker came in and was like, oh no, it was kind of a plan to make it look like the Empire destroyed itself, and actually they were building themselves up in the outer regions and whatnot to make the First Order. It's a bit hand-wavy, but that's generally speaking what Operation Cinder was, and that's how Burnin Konn is mainly known, is from that Mandalorian discussion with Migs and an Imperial officer. Back to the comic. You've got Taonga and Losha, along with the rest of the crew, just sat in this cantina, annoyed at the fact that they lost Valance and also Cadelia, which is the daughter of two members of the crime syndicates, the Unbroken Clan and Mourner's Wail, and Cadelia would have been able to unite the clans, allegedly. And Valance tucked her away, hidden with his young love, Yura, on a planet which has got a rebel base on it. It's a whole thing. Check out the prior episodes of Bounty Hunters and it explains it all. But yeah, they just sat around kind of moping a bit and drinking, and then some species come in which are called Keraks. Now, not seen these before anywhere else in Legends or Canon. They are basically humanoid bug people. That's the best way to describe them, kind of like grasshoppers, I suppose. They go into the cantina to rob it, and the bar owner can't afford it because he already pays the Hutts, the Pikes, and the Unbroken Clan, so Taonga starts a fight with them. Back to Valance, he wakes up and still won't help Vader. And then Vader shows that they can see into Valance's mind. There's an Imperial officer who've got some wires connected up to Valance's head, and it's playing things from his brain completely because he is so robotic now and so many parts of him are that they can actually translate his thought into data that is readable. Then there's a recap of Valance's life, which if you've been listening to the show for a while, you would already know. If not, go check those episodes out because it gets repeated in the Han Solo Imperial Cadet comics. It gets mentioned as like the first sighting of Valance in canon. Then you get the Target Vader comics, which is a lot more to do with Valance. It's like a prelude to Bounty Hunters, and then you get Bounty Hunters. So we've done recaps of Valance's life numerous times. But it's confirmed that Vader wants Valance to help him find some Crimson Dawn spies that are inside the Empire, and if he doesn't, then he is going to bomb the rebel base which has Yura and Cadelia on it because they know exactly where it is. So while Valance helps Vader, the rebels and Cadelia and his old love are safe. ish. Back to the bar, you've got Taonga fighting, just punching these Carracks in the face and kicking them and just getting out a lot of anger, it seems. She comments saying, hey crew, feel free to join in at any time. And Zuckuss says something that I found quite entertaining. I'm just going to read it. He says, oh, Zuckuss wasn't sure if friend Taonga wanted help. Seemed to be working out some personal issues. Then Zuckuss supposes he could use some cathartic relief too. Zuckuss has been going through some things since his own partner, 4LOM, tried to murder Zuckuss. So then you've got Zuckuss fighting as well. Bosk doesn't want to fight because he's still regrowing back his legs and he's just sat at a table drinking, but then the drink gets spilt, so he dives into the fight too. The Nexu eats one of the Carracks as well, and the Nexu, that's the creature you see in Attack of the Clones. It's the one that attacks Padme in the Geonosis Colosseum and scratches her back and things. That's a Nexu, and Losha and Taonga have a pet Nexu from what I recall. So there's all this big brawl going on. They're all getting out their anger or aggression or sadness or just dealing with emotions with violence, which is not really the most healthy way of dealing with things. But then Losha, which is Taonga's partner, then fights the last one. She's on its back and is trying to choke it. She gets some advice from the fellow bounty hunters and then does manage to kill it. And then Taonga's like, well, I didn't want you doing that. I want us to be able to just return back to the farm for a nice, calm and peaceful life after we've sorted out Cadelia, because that's all I want, peace. And Losha says, why would she want to return back to the farm? It's so boring. This is so exhilarating. She doesn't want to return at all, which leaves a shocked expression on Taonga's face. And then we go back to Valance. It shows that he then accepts the Empire's offer begrudgingly, saving Cadelia and Yura and etc. And so he meets Ochi of Bestoon. So Ochi of Bestoon, he's in the Darth Vader comics, the 2021s, quite a lot, but he was first seen in The Rise of Skywalker, and he's in the upcoming book Shadows of the Sith. He is an assassin, he's a seeker of Sith relics, and he's a worshipper of the dark side in some ways. Worship is mainly a bit too strong, but he does follow a lot of Darksiders. But Ochi is Valance's new boss, and their mission is to kill Tal Sokoli, the spine dragon of Anaxes. And that is where Bounty Hunters 18 ends. So we move on to the next issue, Star Wars 19. So Star Wars number 19 from the 2020 run came out December 8th, 2021. The trade paperback collection, including issues 19 to 23, should be out September 2022. The writer is Charles Soule, the artist is Mario Castiello, and the colour artist is Rachelle Rosenberg. And if you want to find out how to catch up fully with the Star Wars 2020 run of comics, then listen to episodes 73 and 78 of Comics in Canon, and then check out the War of the Bounty Hunters crossovers I mentioned, and that will bring you up to speed. I would also recommend reading the 2017 run of the Darth Vader comics written by Charles Soule, because A, they're some of the best Star Wars comics ever, but also because there's mention of the Barash Vow, which comes into this issue specifically, and I'll go slightly more into that going forward. But if you haven't read those comics and you want to find out about them, you can start with episode 62 of Comics in Canon. So with that all in mind, let's get into the crawl. After scattering following the Battle of Hoth, the Rebel fleet is once again reunited and must plan their next steps carefully. Luke Skywalker, after having a near-death encounter with Darth Vader, realises he must continue his training if he is to become a Jedi and defeat the Dark Lord of the Sith. So the issue starts with 3 divisions of the Rebel fleet together, while there's many others that were still separated. So they all just splintered off after the Battle of Hoth, as the crawl noted, and then they've been having troubles communicating with each other, which is all confirmed in those prior episodes I mentioned. You've got Shara Bey, who's on the Star Destroyer, still feeding the rebellion information, but obviously trying to save her is quite an important thing, while you've also got Commander Zara on the hunt for the remaining Rebel divisions and cells. It's confirmed that Captain Holdo is trying to gather some fuel and supplies, normally done through the crime families, but because they are in such disarray, it's been quite difficult to do so. Those being in disarray is because of the War of the Bounty Hunters, and then also Captain Holdo is Amilyn Holdo, played by Laura Dern in The Last Jedi. She's also in Leia, Princess of Alderaan, the book by Claudia Gray. She's a very cool character and has been popping up more and more in the canon since, obviously, Last Jedi when she was first shown and created for, but also in Claudia Gray's book as well. She appears quite a bit, and it's really, really interesting hearing about her when she was younger. But during this briefing of the rebellion, Luke is daydreaming. He can't really focus. Leia notices this and speaks to him. They have a bit of back and forth, and it ends up being Leia saying he can follow his feelings. Last time he did that, he went away and came back with a lightsaber, which hugely helped the rebellion's morale, and obviously is very important to have as well. This was the Jedi lightsaber he got from a temple, and it's actually a Jedi Temple Guard lightsaber, and he has an interaction with the ghost of an ex-Jedi Temple Guard. That's as much as I can say without spoiling spoiling it and without spoiling certain other elements, but people who know who I'm talking about know who I'm talking about, and there is a reason I haven't named them specifically, but I'm not going to delve into that. So Luke agrees and leaves the Rebels briefing and then goes to visit the Jedi sites that R2-D2 stole from the Empire. So there's a few places here mentioned. He does visit a few of them, and the ones he visits I'll give you information on when we get there. But the ones that he doesn't visit that are on R2-D2's list, you've got Tython, which is in Mandalorian Series 2. It's a part where there's a very important scene with the child in it, and that's as much as I'll say about that, just in case. Then there's Chespia and Devaron. So Devaron has been in a few episodes of the Clone Wars. It's also been in Greg Pak's Weapon of a Jedi, and it's also been in Aftermath, Empire's End, and a few other bits and pieces of the canon. The species Devaronians are from Devaron, which makes sense. They're the devil horned-like beings. You actually first see one in A New Hope in the Cantina, but they do appear elsewhere. In Star Wars Rebels, there's a character, I think it's Vizago or something, who is a Devaronian. He's probably the Devaronian in Star Wars canon that's had the most amount of dialogue and character. But then you've also got the planet, which is Chespia, and Chespia was attacked in the High Republic book, The Fallen Star. There was a temple in there that was destroyed by the Nihil. Now, if you haven't read Fallen Star, apologies, that may have been a very minor spoiler, but it only happens in really brief, and it happens quite near the start of the book itself. But that may be where people remember the names from. But we continue with the story. So Luke is worried and scared about Vader, and he wishes that Yoda would talk to him. So obviously he's either trying to commune with Yoda through the Force or something, but he's not really speaking to Yoda in essence. So Luke decides first to head to the planet Ilum. It shows that the Empire is cutting into it, so he decides to leave. Now, Ilum is a very important planet. It is an ice planet, and it is in the Clone Wars arc, which is about younglings. The episode specifically is called The Gathering. I believe it's in the 5th season and is the 6th episode. It also appears quite heavily in the game Jedi Fallen Order, and also something that people don't always know about this is that Starkiller Base from The Force Awakens is actually the planet Ilum, and it's been somewhat hollowed out. So in the days of the Empire, they were trying to take all the Kyber that they could possibly get from Ilum so they could build Death Star cannons and etc. And then when the First Order came about, they decided to turn the planet into a Death Star, in essence. It has 66-hour days, and it's been used for centuries, maybe even millennia, by Jedi. Now, it wasn't actually created for the Clone Wars. It was actually first in a Legends book called Jedi Quest Path to Truth. And then it's also in the Clone Wars micro series, which is the 2D animated one that came out, I think, around 2003, before Revenge of the Sith. And there's something fun that I only found out when looking this information up. It's in the visual dictionary of The Rise of Skywalker, that once Ilum gets destroyed, it becomes a star, which you see that in The Force Awakens. But then people name the star Solo, which is obviously a reference to that's where Solo lost his life, and he did it trying to help out the rebellion. So I thought that was just a really nice little bit of trivia. So the next planet that Luke goes to is somewhere called Arashar. I couldn't find note of Arashar anywhere. It was heavily guarded by Star Destroyers, so Luke then leaves. Now I have a suspicion that it was mentioned, and it hasn't got any other mention in the canon or legends. I have a suspicion it's going to pop up in the High Republic and be fairly important there, but that's just a prediction of mine. So then the next planet that Luke goes to is the planet Lothal. Now Lothal is a main part of the Star Wars Rebels series. I really hope all of you listening have checked out Star Wars Rebels, because it's not only, in my opinion, the best animated content in Star Wars, I think it's also some of the best storytelling in all of Star Wars, including the original trilogy, which I think the original trilogy are incredible, don't get me wrong, but Star Wars Rebels is so good. The first series is good. It's not phenomenal, but it is good. The ending's really good. But then Series 2 onwards, the finale of Series 2 is some of my favourite Star Wars ever. So if you're listening to this and you still haven't checked out Rebels, I don't care what your excuse is, if you think it's for kids or you don't like animation, anything like that, does not matter. Go watch Star Wars Rebels. If you didn't like Clone Wars, that's fine. Skip over the Clone Wars. You don't have to go back to it necessarily. Just try Rebels. It really supports the original trilogy, whole host of new characters, and it's just excellent. But yeah, the planet Lothal, so it is actually near the Calamari sector in the Outer Rim, which is where Mon Cala is based, which is where the Quarren and the species Mon Calamari are both from. Mon Calamari is the species Admiral Akbar is. Lothal was settled approximately 3,245 years before the rise of the Empire, so thousands of years prior. Any other information about Lothal you would find out from watching Star Wars Rebels, so that's all the information I'm going to give you here. So Luke lands on Lothal. He then senses something is there. He feels like something is locked, and then he leaves and goes to somewhere else. Now, the reason he feels that way is because in Rebels there's a point where a couple of characters manage to open up a temple, and then the temple falls down into the ground again. That's kind of what it's alluding to. There's a bit more to it than that, but I didn't want to spoil Rebels, so, if that sounds interesting, go check it out. So the next place that Luke heads to is the river moon Al-Dolim, and he sees ruins of the city Am-Baldar. Now he comments as he's flying his X-Wing over it that it seems like a dam has collapsed, and then people have somewhat rebuilt essentially round the corner. And you may be thinking, that sounds familiar. You're correct, it does, but I will explain how shortly. So Luke lands and he tries to find out some information about where he's landed. So he goes to try and mind trick a couple of stormtroopers for information. He completely fails and then walks away. He's then walking away feeling kind of sorry for himself while speaking with R2-D2, and then R2-D2 goes and speaks to someone else. The person that R2-D2 speaks with is someone called Collie. Now, this guy, Collie, tells Luke to come into his workshop because he notices Luke's lightsaber, and he mentions there's a Jedi starship right nearby, which Luke doesn't recognise. The ship is a Delta 7 Aether Sprite, and it's shown primarily at the start of Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, when you've got Anakin and Obi-Wan flying atop of Coruscant having that big old space battle. So that's what a Delta 7 Aether Sprite is. Just a Jedi starfighter, but like the next model after the triangular one that was made famous in the game Jedi Starfighter, but also in Episode 2 when Obi-Wan goes to Geonosis and stuff. They're all the same sort of starships, just with mild differences. But anyway, Collie says that the ship was stored there by a gentleman named Kirak. Now, Kirak Infila was a character who featured heavily in the first volume of 2017 Darth Vader comics. I said it earlier, but please check out episode 62 of Star Wars Comics in Canon if you haven't already, because these Darth Vader comics are just so good. You need to pick them up and read them because they're phenomenal, but if you've already read them, then check out my episode on them too. But Kirak Infila, him and Vader fought, and when they fought, Vader decided to use the dam against Kirak because he noted, Jedi have got compassion and things like that, so he managed to defeat him by almost tricking him in some ways. But doing that, it meant that the whole place flooded, and because Kirak warned Collie and his family about something bad was going to happen and got them to evacuate, they then survived. Well, Collie and his baby sister survived. His parents, however, did not, and he was only young when this occurred. Because this was like shortly after Revenge of the Sith, so it was about 20-something years ago by now, like 22-ish years ago. But they have some back and forths, and Coley reminisces about the things I just mentioned to you, and there is a little goof, as one would call it, where you actually see Vader ignite a lightsaber, but that whole arc is about Vader getting his lightsaber, so in that battle he didn't have it. That was a very minor issue, it doesn't take away, and I kind of view it as the way that Collie kind of thinks about it, or when Collie is telling Luke about it, that's how Luke kind of envisions it in his mind. So it's a very, very minor continuity issue that, it doesn't bother me at all. So after speaking, Collie then takes Luke to where the old monastery was, which is where Kirak stayed. There are Imperials everywhere and they're taking artifacts, and they're still doing it to this day. There's just tons and tons of things to take out of this place. So Collie then leaves Luke there. He says, look, I want to help you, but I'm not willing to throw my life away to help you because then I feel like that's disrespectful to the Jedi. Kirak who actually saved me. So Luke decides to go in by himself, and he's holding his lightsaber. He then ignites it and says in a huge bout of aggression that he could cut through all of the troopers, none of them would ever stand a chance, and then he stops for a moment, deignites his saber, and then gives it to R2-D2, and thinks, that can't go through with that. So he sits by himself and meditates for a while, and then decides to try and go into the facility or monastery, the area in which all the troopers are. He managed to successfully mind trick a couple of stormtroopers and tells them to get the most valuable artifact that they can. And they return and give him a holocron, which has got Yoda's teachings in it. And that is where Star Wars 19 ends. So we move on to Darth Vader 18. It was released December 1st, 2021. The trade paperback is due to be released August 2022, and that's issues 18 to 22 as far as I can tell. The writer is Greg Pak, the artist is Leonard Kirk, and the colour artist is Alex Sinclair. Just before I go into the crawl, just if you want to catch up with things, listen to episodes 79 and 81 for the first and second volumes of the 2020 run of Darth Vader comics, and then check out my 6 episodes on War of the Bounty Hunters. But with that in mind, let's get into the crawl. The criminal organisation known as Crimson Dawn humiliated the Empire and manipulated the Hutts into attacking them. This led to the swift punishment and destruction of the Hutt Council. Now that Darth Vader has discovered Crimson Dawn's influence across the galaxy, his first priority is to seek out the infiltrators and destroy them one by one. So onto the story. Vader thinks about Luke in Empire Strikes Back, and he also thinks about Palpatine. He mentions in his own mind that Palpatine punishes the most loyal while all else falls to pieces. So he will do it himself. He will find the true traitors, Crimson Dawn. So it goes to a planet called Vincorba, which doesn't seem to show up anywhere else. You've got a Spontiff, which I think is like a leader, and his advisor in this shield bubble orb thing. It kind of looks like maybe ray shields, but slightly different in technology, but yeah, it's an energy shield of some sort. They're going through this crowd on like a plinth, going through, and they then get attacked. There's a character called Chilla Zin who attacks, along with a droid called G90. Then after there's been a bit of damage to the shields, then a single sniper shot goes through the shield at the right moment, gets the Pontiff straight in the head, and kills them. So let's get some information about these characters. So you've got Chilla Zin. Chilla Zin is a unknown insectoid species. They kind of look like a giant fly sort of thing, but you've also got G90 and Loriach. So G90 is a giant weaponized sphere droid, kind of imagine like BB-8, but really, really, really big. Kind of like a wrecking ball sort of size, but with like a little BB-8 head on the top of it. The other character, who is Loriach, is an Alasmech. So Alasmechs are natives to Mustafar. They are Sith cultists who protect Vader's castle. Now they're first seen in The Rise of Skywalker, because you don't actually get to see them on Mustafar when you go there in episode 3, but they'll likely show up in canon elsewhere. So after all this mayhem and things these bounty hunters have caused, they then leave on a speeder. Vader throws some debris at the speeder and they all fall off of it, and then Ochi steps forward and confirms that this is all a test and that they are hired. So then it shows the planet Kalior, which also doesn't seem to be elsewhere. So you've got people being taken advantage of, and then a group called the Revengers appear. So the Revengers consist of 3 individuals. One is a human, one is a Trandoshan, same as Bosk or Skier, and one is a Weequay, same as Hondo Onaka, and also a lot of the time in Clone Wars when you get some thugs, or I know that on Jawa's sail barge in Return of the Jedi there were quite a few there as well. They're kind of leather-faced humanoids. But anyway, once the Revengers appear, they then take on the Imperials and this bird person. Now the bird person I didn't mention prior, but in short, on this planet that they're on, the bird person is forcibly stealing their water source and then is going to charge them to use their own water source. The family asks them not to do that, and obviously he ignores it, so he's immediately a baddie who deserves to die, and that's what happens. So you've then got some AT-STs that approach, and it shows that Ochi and co are now attacking. So the Revengers are indebted to all of these people for saving their lives. So Vader's TIE fighter swoops down and then destroys a couple of other bigger vessels that pop up that would be hard to destroy with standard blasters, and then the Revengers think that he is a hero. And then around this campfire later on, the Revengers confirm that their friends and family were all killed by Crimson Dawn, hence why they're doing what they're doing, which is for free. Ochi finds this fairly amusing and calls them expendable assets, and then it shows the final panels are on a planet, or meteor rather, called Polis Massa, which was in, I think, the original PlayStation 2 Battlefront 2 game, which was amazing. But you would know Polis Massa because that's actually where Luke and Leia were both born. You see it at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and also Vader goes there during the 2020 run of Vader comics, so it is popping up a lot more, but I think it has quite a rich history in Legends. So anyway, it's on Polis Massa, and then there's someone who sees that Vader must have been here and was watching Padme's death. So this someone pulls down their hood, and it's shown that it is Sabe, who is searching for Vader. So Sabe is in The Phantom Menace. It's played by Keira Knightley. It's the main body double for Padme Amidala. And Sabe has been in other things. I think she's in all 3 of the Queen's trilogy by E.K. Johnston, and Sabe was previously known as Sabin, but it seems like they changed their name after Padme's funeral, but I cannot 100% confirm on that. But there's a bit of backstory on Sabe. But moving on, because that was the final panel of Darth Vader 18, we get to the final issue. So the final issue is Doctor Aphra 16. It was released November 19th, 2021. The trade paperback collection is due to come out August 2022, collecting issues 16 to 20. And then you've got the writer as Alyssa Wong, you've got Minkyu Jung as the artist, and Rachelle Rosenberg as the colour artist. So if you want to catch up with Aphra, make sure you listen to episodes 67 and 71 of Star Wars Comics in Canon, and then after that check out the 6 episodes of the War of the Bounty Hunters. But with that in mind, let's get into the final crawl of this episode. Rogue archaeologist Dr. Aphra and smuggler Sana Starros are working for Domina Taig. The job? Infiltrate the most dangerous place in the galaxy, an auction hosted by the resurgent crime syndicate Crimson Dawn. After getting captured, imprisoned, and staging a breakout, Aphra and Sana barely escaped by surviving an encounter with the Thought Dowser, an ancient piece of Ascendant technology. So delving straight into the story, it starts on Taig's ship called the Acquisitor, which is a nice little nod, and you've got someone who's an employee called Sierra. They're performing a performance review while being accused of theft of intellectual property, espionage, and a few other things. He is noted to have 2 denied promotions, which might be one of the reasons why he was acting in such a way, and asks about his work with someone else, like Crimson Dawn or whatever. Sierra then lunges at her with a blade hidden in their wrist. It comes out as it goes towards Domina, but Domina is very well trained, so she catches his arm, does a few hits, flips him over, and just defeats him immediately and KOs him. She then asks her admin team to send the next potential spy into the room so she can continue with her interrogations. Meanwhile, you've got Aphra on Corellia with Sana Starros. They are at a Toydarian's workshop, a Toydarian named Merle, who is trying to look at these electric tattoos that Aphra had, but have since been fried since controlling the Thought Dowser. The electric tattoos are completely useless. So Sana suggests that Aphra maybe contacts Domina Taig. Aphra is unsure about this, but then agrees, because she uses a stolen necklace as insurance. Now that stolen necklace was taken from a Feline princess or queen who was in one of the previous issues of War of the Bounty Hunters and Dr. Aphra. I think she has interactions with a couple of characters. While this is going on, we return to Just Lucky, who approaches Wen Delphis, the leader of the 6th Kin Syndicate, demanding the location of his brother. Wen says that Ariel tells the whole story of them very differently, and therefore Wen isn't sure who to trust. So, Just Lucky, frustrated with all this, just leaves. He thinks to himself how annoying it is about Ariel going in there and telling Wen Delphis some different sides of the story and things like that, but he does make a comment about how Ariel Yu still has a broken heart over Just Lucky. So Just Lucky then leaves, and as he's left the room, Wayne says very quietly to himself, "The bait has been set." You then get a nice little flashback, so Just Lucky is thinking about a few days ago when all of this stuff was going on. He notes that his mentor Grey, as well as Deathstick, were both alive. Kira wants to talk to them right now, and then it cuts to Aphra. So Aphra gives this necklace to Domina, who takes it, smiles, and says, "Good job, you did very well, Aphra." And Aphra gets really embarrassed. It's like, oh my god, no one's ever said something that nice to me. I'm not used to it. And it just made me giggle. Domina Taig then asks about the Thought Dowser from Aphra. And so I'm just going to read you out what Aphra says about it, because it's a bit easier than me trying to paraphrase. So Aphra says the Thought Dowser was one of many tools the Ascendant made while they were around. Its effects are intoxicating, and she can't recommend it. Domina asks if the Ascendant are gone, and Aphra says, yeah, they have been for hundreds of years. It turns out when you're a cult obsessed with malevolent technology and replicating the effects of the Force, ancient Jedi and Sith have a personal interest in your extinction. You know, kill the competition and all that. So Domina asks, did the Ascendant succeed in replicating the Force? And Aphra said, no, I don't think that's possible, but the Ascendant did make a lot of dark, nasty artifacts before they bit the dust. The Jedi destroyed most of their work, but once in a while, one will pop up in a smuggling network. Most of the time it's counterfeit, and when it isn't, people tend to turn up dead and the artifact goes missing. The Thought Dowser was the first one I'd seen in person, but when I used it, it felt wrong, like it was infecting me. So Domina says, intriguing. I'd like to study the damage it did to your body. And Aphra says, well, actually, I was hoping you'd be able to fix my electro tattoos. And she's like, yeah, of course, but I'll require something from you in return. So Domina organises her medical team to fix Aphra's tattoos, and she gets an upgrade on her electro tattoos, which is really cool. Aphra and Sana then go to Coruscant. Aphra manages to undo a security droid immediately, and she comments on how quick it was and how much better it was than her old gadgets. And then Aphra wants to go inside and talk to the curator, who buys and sells artifacts on the black market. So they go inside to try and speak to this gentleman, and they find 8 severed hands on the floor around in a circle with this thing outlined in the middle. Before they can work out really what's going on, apart from that the item that seems to be there would have somewhat matched the design of the Thought Dowser, they aren't sure. So they turn around, and someone with a lightsaber hilt, as well as a hood up and things, says that they know Aphra. And that is where the element of that part ends, but we've still got a little bit of Just Lucky before wrapping up, and that is just that Just Lucky is stopped by an old group of his, which includes there's a gentleman who is a Mon Cala in there, and a few other different species. just like he confirms that there is no more work to do because Ronan is dead. And then the Mon Calamari say, yeah, but he's not dead, he's actually alive. And obviously that is a complete massive shock. But that, my friends, is the Crimson Reign Prelude. So in a few weeks' time, I will then be tackling the first full volume, which will include these issues, but obviously numbered one more than they are at the moment, as well as the individual Crimson Reign issues. So that is something to look forward to. Speaking of things to look forward to, I recently guested on Indie Comic Spotlight, which if you're listening on a podcast app, it is on this exact feed of Comics in Motion. If you are listening on YouTube, then you will need to find some sort of podcast app or something along those lines to be able to listen specifically. But Indie Comic Spotlight is a show by Tony Farina that I've been on several times. Each time we go on, we normally talk about Mark Russell comics, and one time we actually had Mark Russell on the show. That was incredible. A really, really great guy to talk to. But this time we didn't do that. I put forward a different comic, which is called Shadow Service. Now, Shadow Service is actually created and written by Cavan Scott of the High Republic Architects, and obviously I had him on my show a little while ago, and in fact I had him on the show and we spoke about Shadow Service quite a bit, and after reading it so much and talking to Cavan about it, I was like, oh, I think Tony would like this. So I spoke to him and he said he'd check it out, and then after he'd read it, he told me he wanted to do a show on it, and there we go, that's where we are. So you can just search for it, Indie Comic Spotlight, and it will be one of the most recent episodes on Comics in Motion, or you can click a link that I've included in the description. In addition to that, I have been on Star Wars Timeline a few times semi-recently. Links to those are in the description. But the main thing ongoing at the moment is the Kenobi discussion show. So obviously last week I did not have a chance to record an episode of Genuine Chit-Chat, or rather release one, and also Star Wars Comics in Canon, and also the Kenobi discussion show. In addition to that, because I'm sorting out my house with Megan and we're spending a lot of free time at the house painting, stripping up wallpaper, etc., it just means that that weekend in particular was incredibly busy for me. But we are continuing with the Kenobi discussion show. There are 4 more episodes of Kenobi to go, and therefore there's going to be 4 more discussion shows to go. And I've pretty much sorted out the lineup for the guest list. There's a few other people that are going to potentially show up on an episode or 2, but it's all fairly well set into the calendars. So I will be recording episode 2 of that this week, which means that it should hopefully be released on the Friday. So it will actually have come out the day before this episode came out. And my Kenobi discussion show, they are all going to be on my YouTube channel as well. So if you're listening there, fear not, you don't need to go anywhere. There will be a playlist for it. There's a playlist called Kenobi, and I think it's Kenobi TV show, but then there's also one which is TV show specials, which has got all the episodes I've done with about The Mandalorian, the ones we did on Book of Boba Fett, the one we did on Star Wars Visions, and a few other bits and pieces as well. So loads of other things to get your teeth into regarding Star Wars stuff, regarding me. You know, it's always a lot of fun. Links to all of those things are in the description. Aside from that, please make sure you give me a 5-star rating, or us as Comics in Motion, a 5-star rating on a Spotify app. You can also share a review on Good Pods or Apple Podcasts, places like that. It really, really helps the show out. You can also share on social media, anywhere that you are socially active, you know, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, anywhere like that. You can share Comics in Motion or Genuine Chit-Chat episodes and tell the world about them. You can also tell any of your friends about it, because one thing I like to do with this show is reinforce the fact that you never have to have read a Star Wars comic in your entire life. As long as you've seen the majority of the movies, ideally all 11 of the Star Wars movies, then you can enjoy any episode of Star Wars Comics in Canon. So please share it with your friends, tell everyone you know who likes Star Wars about this, and it will help grow the show out even more. But if you want to support the show even more than that, and a few people have done recently, shout out to Spider-Dan and Scott Weatherly, the 20th Century Geek, where I release something on my Patreon. So it's patreon.com/genuinechitchat. For as little as £1 a month, you get access to hours and hours of additional content every single week. So in addition to Star Wars Comics in Canon that comes out weekly, and the discussion shows that I do on Comics in Motion that come out obviously when the shows come out, as well as my weekly episodes of Genuine Chit-Chat, you also get early access to Genuine Chit-Chat episodes. So you get access to part 1 and part 2. When it's a split episode gets released, you get access to both of them in one unsplit episode on the feed, but also you get access to at least one episode of Afterthoughts every single week. So myself and Megan normally do the Afterthoughts, so we do episodes on TV shows and movies and other stuff. We just recorded a nearly hour-long discussion on the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies so far. There's some potentially controversial opinions in that, but if you want to hear that, you need to become a supporter of the show. As I said, it's as little as £1 a month. Really helps support the show, and you do get hours and hours of additional content. But if that wasn't enough, I also do exclusive Star Wars book reviews on there. So I've done some Legends things, I've done some Canon stuff. So Canon wise, I've done A New Dawn, which is the Rebels prequel, Last Shot by Daniel Jose Older, and also Dark Disciple by Christy Golden. And I've also done the Legends books, Darth Bane, Path of Destruction, Darth Plagueis, and Shatterpoint. I have also due to record an episode on Mike Chen's Brotherhood canon novel, which is set right at the very start of the Clone Wars, before the Clone Wars movie or TV series or anything like that, set only weeks after Attack of the Clones, and it is an absolute brilliant read. So I'm going to release my review on that over there too. Now my reviews, my book reviews specifically, follow a similar format to my High Republic ones on this feed or on YouTube, wherever you're listening, where I generally give my spoiler-free thoughts to begin with, talk about some of the themes and things where it won't spoil any elements of the book to hear, and then I give you plenty of spoiler warning. I talk a little bit more in depth about some of the characters and things that show up, and then I give a final spoiler warning where I basically just talk about the whole plot and give you guys some information on the book itself, just so if you are not interested in necessarily reading the book, you still have general ideas of what the book's about and the broad strokes of the plot, or it will then inspire you to go pick up the book. Either way, Brotherhood's excellent. All the books that I've read for this show or Afterthoughts or anything are really good. I'm very, very chuffed about all these Star Wars books. But yeah, you can get access to Star Wars book reviews that I don't release anywhere else, as well as Afterthoughts that don't get released elsewhere, as well as early access to stuff, as well as a direct line of contact to myself, and you support the show. What could be better for me or for you? Probably you winning the lottery, but I don't have that power, so please consider checking out my Patreon page at patreon.com/genuinechitchat. But aside from that, my friends, that's going to be enough from me. Please follow me on social media at Genuine Chit Chat on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. I release photos of the comics I tackle on this show. I also release snippets of my episodes of Genuine Chit Chat, as well as a few other bits and pieces on there too. But thank you so much for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you listening all the way up to the end. I will speak to you next Saturday with I don't actually know. I haven't figured out what I'm tackling next week. I am planning on doing a Star Wars book review for Mission to Disaster, which is the last junior novel in the High Republic Phase 1, but I haven't yet finished reading it, so that may be the week after. I'm not fully sure, but I'm either going to do the finale of the Poe Dameron comics, or I'm going to do the Edge of Balance manga, which is in the High Republic, or I'm going to do a book review, or those sorts of things. Or maybe I'll do an IDW publishing comic, so I might do the Clone Wars Battle Tales. I may do the Return to Vader's Castle comics, because there was recently a character in Kenobi that popped up in one of those, which if you listen to my Kenobi discussion show, you will know who I'm talking about. But yeah, loads of stuff I'm doing. Some stuff to do with Star Wars, some stuff nothing to do with Star Wars. Just a lot of content for all you lovely listeners, and I appreciate all of you. So I'll talk to you next week with something. It's going to be a surprise for all of us. And as always, may the Force be with you. The intro for Star Wars Comics in Canon is arranged by myself, Mike Burton, and the backing music was made by Eric Matias of soundimage.org.
You have just experienced host, creator, everything elser of Genuine Chit Chat, and also the host and creator of Star Wars Comics in Canon, found on the Comics in Motion podcast, Mike Burton.